do we need to do? How can we prepare ourselves to future-proof our careers? If we don't find a way to take control of our careers and to stand out, we risk being left behind. When you take the initiative, when you take your free time, when you are willing to invest in yourself and in your continued learning, you can push your career into places you never would have even thought possible. The number one skill, the foundational skill that we all have today is adaptability. If you have that, you can evolve, you can change, you can move into the new direction and make your transition seamless regardless of what's going on in the outside world. When you rethink what's possible and what's impossible, you can change everything. That's how we make ourselves future-proof.
Hello. I'm Marshall Goldsmith. I am so happy to be here with my wonderful friend, Dorie Clark. I love Dorie Clark. She is a fantastic coach, #1 communication coach in the world, author of some fantastic books. And we're here today to talk about her new book, The Long Game. Totally important. My clients, I'm a coach. My clients need help with this. I need help giving them help. So I'm here to learn. Dorie, welcome.
Marshall, well, thank you so much for having me. And I'm so happy to be here with you, the coach of coaches. I've got a prop for you too. This is one of Marshall's amazing books, Triggers. You've probably read it and his other books like What Got You Here Won't Get You There and How Women Rise. And of course, Marshall is one of the featured celebrity guest stars in The Long Game. So thank you so much, Marshall.
Dorie, wonderful. Let's get started. We all agree long-term thinking is a good thing. Everybody says we should think long, big picture. And people have this buzzword now. I don't want to be in the business. I want to be, I want to be above the business or on the business or some nonsense. I forget what it is. But anyway, why is it so hard to do? Everybody talks this, but we don't do it very well.
It's true. A lot of people talk a good game about long-term thinking, and we want to do it. There was a really interesting pair of statistics that I discovered in the course of researching The Long Game that really stayed with me. There was a study that was done a few years ago by the Management Research Group of 10,000 entrepreneurs and executives, and it showed that 97% said that strategic thinking, they thought it was one of the most important elements a leader could do. And in a separate study, 96% said they didn't have time for strategic thinking and long-term thinking. So it's a little crazy. But I think a big part of it is that for most of us, we are trying to stuff 120% of activities into 100% of the time. We have to carve out more white space for ourselves because it's not that it takes a huge amount of time to do strategic thinking, but none of us have mental space anymore. And we've got to forcibly claim that for ourselves.
Okay, how do you, now, I always think if I don't understand how something applies to me, I don't understand it at all. And so how do you structure your own time to create more white space in your life?
Yeah, this is really important. And it's something that I've thought about a lot. So one element that I use, there's a gentleman named Paul Graham, who's the founder of the Silicon Valley Incubator, Y Combinator. And he wrote a blog post a number of years ago talking about manager schedules versus maker schedules. And as a self-employed person, and honestly, I think this actually applies to all of us, whether you work for yourself or not, I actually believe that we need to have both components of this. And so manager time is the kind of, back to back, you have a call, you have a meeting, you check in with things, you keep the project moving forward. Maker time is something different. It's when you make significant progress on meaningful, deep work projects. So I actually alternate days where some days it's back to back meetings so I can just get things done. And it enables me to carve out a lot of white space so that I can focus on things like, that require a lot of cognitive effort, like writing a book.
I'm a Buddhist, and Buddhist philosophy, every time I take a deep breath, it's a new me. And I don't want to get too philosophical, but I think one of the challenges we have on the long game is I'm actually taking something away from the me today and giving to that person in the future. And Dorie, I'm not sure that rascal's even going to be grateful for my sacrifices. So how do you really inspire people to really, it is taking a hit right now and sacrifice? Let me give you one example. One of my clients, a CEO of a company I'm dealing with right now, he encouraged every one of his people 4 hours a day for strategic thinking. This is CEO. These are executive vice presidents. The first we had checked, 0. Why? It's very hard to take a hit on today's numbers, today's productivity, today's work for that future me. Give me ideas.
Yeah, this is really such a challenge. And it's interesting. There have been a lot of experiments in the realms of things like financial planning, where they actually have people literally look at computer graphically aged photographs of themselves so that it can create a greater sense of empathy to actually recognize that, oh, this person, who's 20 years older, that's me, that's going to be me, as a way of inspiring people to do things like save more money. So I think that, it's an interesting, albeit kind of an extreme example. But the way that I like to think about it is nobody is ever sad that they worked out yesterday. Maybe they don't want to work out today. It's a hassle. It's too much effort. You don't want to do it. But we're always happy that we did it the day before because we're reaping the benefits, down the line. And so I really try to frame long-term thinking for myself personally is, what are the things that I can be doing now that I will be grateful to have done tomorrow? And I'm actually just curious, Marshall, you are someone who accomplishes so much. You're constantly, and we were just talking before, and you're starting up again, flying around the world. I know pre-COVID you did it so frequently. You accomplish a ton. And I would love to hear more about how you structure your time in order to accomplish big projects. How do you think about creating white space for yourself?
Well, I think you talked about me in the book, and something we're going to get back to called Thinking in Waves. But one of the best coaching moments of my life occurred with Dr. Paul Hersey, and you talk about it. I met him. I was making $15,000 a year. He starts paying me $1,000 a day. I'm 28 years old. I had my business experience pumping gas in Valley Station, Kentucky. I'm making $1,000 a day. I'm running around like a chicken with my head cut off selling days. And he called me in and he said, look, you're making a lot of money. You're doing good. Your customers are happy. You're never going to be who you could be. You're not looking at the long term. You're not planning for your future. You're not writing. You're not thinking. And I'll tell you, that really helped change my life. And that's why I love your book. I love what you're doing. What you're really telling people, I think, is you can be more. You can be more. And if you don't, let me tell you something else, you'll regret it.
I think that's really true, Marshall. And thank you for sharing your story. I was so glad to be able to tell it in the long game because I think that you really exemplify one of the important lessons. When I talk about thinking in waves, a problem that I see with a lot of the clients that I work with and coach is that oftentimes they feel like they're in a rut. I'm working so hard, I'm not making the progress I want. And oftentimes, if you dig into it, it's because they are working really hard, but they're just doing the same thing over and over. And what I've learned is that in the arc of our lives and our career, we really need to learn how to shift and how to go into new modes. And so by the time someone reaches what I call reaping mode, where they're already pretty successful, they're making good money, they have good acclaim for what they're doing, the natural tendency is to view that as an end point. Oh, good, I can, bask in this for the next 30 years. But of course, as you raise the point, and I think it's so true, that's not right, because the world changes, things move on, and that's how we stagnate. And so we have to be willing to disrupt ourselves, as our friend Whitney Johnston likes to say, and actually proactively shift from reaping mode back into learning mode. It becomes circular to learn something new and engage in something new the way you did with your 100 Coaches initiative.
I think Whitney does bring up a very good point, that idea of disrupting yourself. And it does lead me to a song. Disrupt yourself. Because if you don't disrupt yourself, ain't nobody gonna give a good cahoot. Disrupt yourself. A very, very important point. Very important point.
It's worth singing, in fact. Yes.
One thing I love, deciding what to be bad at. Talk about that. I love that. Deciding what to be bad at.
Yes, this is a concept I talk about in the long game, and it's honestly one of my favorites because I think it's so counterintuitive. This is drawing on some research from colleagues Francis Fry and Ann Morris, and they have done a lot of research into service industry businesses, and they wanted to look at the question of why is it that it is just so rare for a business to be excellent. Most businesses are kind of meh, kind of average. Why? And what they discovered is that at a really fundamental level, people, companies and individuals are very hesitant to make actual strategic choices. Everybody loves to think about what you're going to be great at. That's the fun part. Oh, I'm going to be great at this. Yes, we're going to excel here. But somehow there's a little bit of magical thinking where people somehow believe you can get away with being great at this and then, average, okay, at everything else. Not true. We have limited bandwidth. And so if we're truly going to be great at something, it means we're probably going to have to be bad at something else. And we have to recognize it, own it, and make those choices accordingly.
Dorie, I love that idea because I think I'm bad about 99% of everything. So I love this concept because I never felt self-righteous about my badness, but now I do.
I'm so glad to give you that gift, Marshall. It makes me very happy.
As a good gift. And Dorie, one thing I love about both of our friends, Alan Mullally, the guy goes to Ford. He doesn't know how to he doesn't know about cars, right? But one thing I love about Alan, he had a saying, if I'm not the world's expert on this topic, why am I speaking? I'm probably going to do more harm than good. I love that. And I think that ties in. Don't be ashamed. Don't feel this need to be great at everything. None of us are great at everything anyway. Don't be ashamed. So I love that idea. Now, you've got something here, a great tool, the long game strategic self-assessment. Do share, how can people get a hold of that and what does it mean?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Marshall. That is correct. And I think our friends might even be able to flash the URL on the screen potentially, but there's a free strategic thinking self-assessment that goes along with the long game. You can download it for free at dorieclark.com/the long game. And it just enables you to turn the lens on yourself to begin to apply some of the principles of strategic thinking so you can think through how they apply to your own life and career. So I hope it'll be helpful for folks.
Very good. Now, when we think about it, we're all, quote, too busy. Too busy. I got too many meetings. I got too many emails. What are some of the other reasons that we really don't do what we know we should do in the long term?
Yeah, you raise an important point, Marshall, because we all know the sort of tip of the iceberg excuses. And it's true. We are too busy. We do have too many meetings. That's not wrong. But it turns out there's other reasons as well. And as I was digging into writing the long game, I realized that oftentimes our problem with busyness, part of why it's so hard to fight and to eradicate is that it sometimes goes deeper. There's been some interesting research by Sylvia Bellezza and her colleagues at Columbia Business School, and they did research into the social status benefits of busyness. And it turns out, I think we probably know this instinctively. A lot of times when you're chatting with someone, you're asking, "Oh, how are you doing?" "Oh, I'm so busy, so busy." We're not saying that like it's a bad thing. It actually is a form of status telegraphing. It's kind of performative because essentially what it's saying is, I'm so in demand. I'm so popular. And, it's kind of a humble brag. And if we actually were to take the steps necessary to become a little less busy, often there's kind of this nagging feeling of, wow, maybe I'm a little less necessary or a little less important than I thought. Or even worse, other people might think that about me. And so often we have to really deal with ourselves and our psyche when it comes to extricating ourselves from some of the busyness that we all feel plagued by.
This is a really, really good point. I want to talk about this in two dimensions. One at the sort of corporate dimension, and then two more at the individual person dimension. First, the corporate dimension. As one of my good clients, George Gonzalez, is really focused on getting his team to the long-term focus, strategic thinking. I'm going to have him look at your book because that is his big push with his team. So I think at the corporate dimension, though, you have to provide structure and direction to make it happen. And one thing he said, though, I love, because there's always people say, I'm too busy, I have an excuse. He said, come and talk to me. You come and talk to me. Let's go over your calendar, because he wants people to work 4 hours a week on strategic thinking. Let's go over that calendar and find out where you can. I'll help you get the 4 hours. We can do it here. But don't sit there and say week after week, I don't have time. Let's look at it. What is it? Face that hard reality and make it happen. And, on the personal level, I have another suggestion too, especially like you or me. I always thought people like you and me, that when I'm too busy. To me, that's stupid. You know what that shows? Charge more money.
Amen to that.
Charge more money. You're too busy. You don't charge enough, right? By the way, from my experience, if you keep raising the fees, you eventually won't be too busy. So
Eminently logical.
Yeah, but you're right. People brag about that all the time. Yeah, they brag about that. I'm overcommitted, as if that's some kind of badge of honor or something. Or I don't have time. Yeah, that's a really good point. That's a good point. Again, I think deep down inside, we're kind of afraid. Now, I can't read. Can you read some of the good comments or questions that people are flashing on the screen?
Yeah, I'm seeing some terrific ones here. I love Peter's comment here. It's true. We all are kind of contributing to this plague of busyness, and sometimes patients are disappointed, and the people around us. In fact, one thing that you raised, Marshall, I love it that you talked about the CEO who was really willing to help his people think through their calendars. And something that I did personally in the long game, and I recount this. That was very helpful was I actually twice have embarked upon a time tracking experiment inspired by my friend, the productivity author, Laura Vanderkam, where for a month at a time, I tracked everything I did in 15-minute increments so that I actually had real data rather than just guesstimates of how I was spending my time. And it was really instructive to be able to peel it back and to understand exactly what I was doing and, some of the mistakes that I was making that had been invisible to me beforehand.
Yeah, somebody who supports that is Peter Drucker. He, in his books, talks about the importance of doing exactly what you said, measuring your time and how we delude ourselves in terms of our time. The other thing is, I think, just being willing to admit we need help. I mean, as you know, I've had someone call me on the phone almost every day for 25 years. Why? My name is Marshall Goldsmith. I'm too cowardly and undisciplined to do any of this stuff by myself. I need help. And you know what? It's okay. Once we admit we need help and get over this ridiculous macho, I can do it on my own, willpower nonsense, I think life is better for everybody. Now, one thing that, my wife would say I need a lot of help with is strategic patience. Well, she just said I need help with patience, period. But specifically, what do you mean by strategic patience?
Well, strategic patience is a concept that I talk about because the truth is I have never been good with with regular garden variety patience. My mom,
coaching moment for you. Coaching for you. Now, I want you to raise your hand and repeat after me. Raise it in. My name is Dorie.
My name is Dorie.
I used to have a problem with this.
I used to have a problem with this.
I do not have an incurable genetic defect.
I do not have an incurable genetic defect.
I'm going to get better in the future.
I'm going to get better in the future.
Yay! Okay.
Yay! So my way, in fact, I'm with you, Marshall. My way of dealing with my previous challenge with patience was really to update it. And that's where strategic patience comes in. Because strategic patience, to me, I like to think of it as a muscular form of patience. What patience, be patient, always implied to me before was essentially just kind of, sit, basically like kind of shut up, right? Just be patient. Just wait your turn. And that can be incredibly frustrating for active people. Now, it's true. It's 100% true that oftentimes things take a while, especially if it's a meaningful goal. Things often take longer than we want them to. That is the truth. But it's also true that we don't have to just sit back and wish and hope for things to happen. I define strategic patience is really creating a hypothesis and then doing things, testing it out, seeing what works, modifying if necessary, recognizing it might take a while, but actually approaching it actively rather than just creating a vision board.
Dorie, one thing, I am so proud of you because you have been a very successful person. You've been a successful coach. You teach at Duke. You've got all kinds of stuff here going on. And as you and I both know, nobody pats you on the head when you write these damn books. There's nobody sitting there saying, great job, thank you, I love you, you're wonderful. It's pretty, you got to do it on and on and on. And the real payoff is not in the short term. The real payoff, as you know, for writing this book is ironically the long term. Your book is the long game. To me, you're a good inspiration as someone who you really do look at the big picture. You're looking at the big thing of what's important in life. You're really focused on developing a wonderful career. You've been a great role model for a lot of people. And, I'm very proud you're a member of our 100 Coaches organization. What's some inspiration you can give to maybe some of the other people like coaches or consultants or people who they would like to be like you are? They would like to be like you are, yet they never quite get it done. Am I making sense?
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for the question, Marshall, which is a very kind one. This in many ways was part of the reason why I wrote The Long Game, because for the past 5 years, I've been running an online course and community called Recognized Expert, where I work with a lot of people that are themselves coaches and consultants. And to be able to see, over a period of years, literally 600 plus people go through, you really come to understand at a cross sectional level, some of the things that are holding people back and, places where people get stuck. And it is actually genuinely upsetting to me when smart and talented people who have something real to offer get discouraged or quit too soon. I want that to not happen. And so I really wanted with a long game to be able to create a framework of sorts so that people would understand, when and how to keep pushing forward so that they can, cross through that kind of dark tunnel where you're not getting a lot of feedback, you're not getting a lot of approbation for what you're doing, and be able to get to the other side. But I think that probably my most powerful piece of advice about it is so important for all of us not to give away our power, because I think we are often too quick as people to assume that someone who is in a position of power, even if it's not something that's necessarily accurate or deserved, but if someone has a title or if someone's in a little bit of authority and they say no to us, so many times I see people get discouraged, get disheartened, they give up, they say, well, I guess it wasn't good enough, or I guess it didn't work, or wow, I guess it's just not going to work for me. But the truth is, that one person or even 5 or 10 people turning you down, it does not mean that your work is not good enough. It might mean they had a bad day. It might mean their inbox is too full. We have to keep pushing forward because your ideas really do deserve to be heard. And I want more people to feel that and to believe it so that they can make the difference they were meant to.
I've been thinking about 3 concepts. And I think all 3 are really important. The first one is action, and the second one is ambition, and the third I call is aspiration. So I'll talk about all 3 and then get back to your book. Our aspiration is something to me that goes beyond a goal. A goal is not a bad thing. A goal has a finish line, and a goal has a finish line. The problem with the finish line is when you're finished, you are finished. That's the problem with a goal. And then so we have the aspiration is beyond a goal. It's really the ultimate long game, as you want to say it. Then our ambition relates to achievement of a specific goal. And then finally, our action is our day-to-day activity. And to me, we really need to get these aligned as much as we possibly can to have a great life. Most humans are lost in the day-to-day action. They're drifting through life. They're just reacting. Very few of those people are listening to us right now. Very few of those people are listening to us at all. They don't do this kind of stuff. They don't read books. They're just reacting to day, and they're not bad. That's just most human beings, right? they're playing an extremely short game in your terms. The people I coach are often lost in something called ambition. They're so focused on achieving goals, they may lose two things. One, they may lose the short-term enjoyment of life because they're so driven to achieve their goals, they forget to have a good time. And two, they forget why, that big purpose. Why am I achieving this goal? Why am I killing myself to make another $1 million? Why do I give a shit? So, I think when I coach people, their real issue, back to the long game, getting back to that bigger goal, that ambition, not the goal itself, but that deeper ambition. If you look at football players, National Football League, disaster, 78% bankrupt within 3 years, NFL, Olympic stars. Why? They achieve the goal and it's over. How do you inspire people to really look at that long-term aspiration in life that goes beyond the short-term goals?
Well, I think it's a powerful question to ask. One obstacle that I see oftentimes is that sometimes people feel very hesitant to engage in long-term thinking or even to really formulate long-term goals because they feel frustrated or somehow like they're not eligible to do it because they don't know how to achieve that goal. Oh, well, I don't want to plan for this because I don't know how I would get there. And one of the points that I try to make in the long game is if it is a long-term enough goal, the good news, the fantastic news is that you don't have to know how you're going to get there. It would almost be ridiculous to come up with a 20-year plan and think that the world is going to be the same enough that you actually could create a plan now and execute it perfectly. That's not even feasible. The world's going to change. Your circumstances are going to change. When we're thinking about long-term plans and ideation, it's about a vision. It's about creating a destination that you're heading toward. You don't have to know how you're going to get there. That will happen in time. You just need to know the next step and keep moving toward it to be directionally correct. And things oftentimes will take care of themselves if you just work one step, away on the journey.
Well, my long-term aspiration or vision is to really help as many people as I can in the limited time I have left to do it, not only now, but in the future. And that's the whole idea behind the 100 Coaches program. And to me, one thing I'm so proud of is you've helped so many people. So I feel like if I can help you even a little bit, the long-term impact on that in the world is just incredibly positive. So I am so proud of you. I just think you're a wonderful person. You're out there helping so many people. Plus, you're just a good human being. Any final thoughts for our group before we sign off?
Marshall, thank you so much. I appreciate the chance to be here with you today, to share a little bit more about the long game and to feature you in it. And I'll also just mention, to the point that you raised, literally yesterday, and I do this frequently in my presentations, but yesterday I was doing an executive education session for a Russian business school. And one of the exercises that I had them do was talking about career models and about, thinking, one of the ways when people feel stuck, when they say, gosh, I don't know what my long-term goals are, or I don't know where to begin. One of the things that I encourage them to do is to really picture role models who are leading the kind of life that they want to have, or that they're inspired by pieces of what they do. And I know that part of what sparked your desire to create the 100 Coaches initiative was our mutual friend Aisha Bursell asking a similar question. And you looked at your role models and said they helped people, they didn't have to, they didn't charge any money, and I want to be like that. And I think that's a really beautiful thing to model yourself on. And I just want to say, I think a lot of people model themselves on you.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much. It's been my honor to talk with you. And I hope for everyone listening, really buy the book. More important, play the long game in your own life. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
What do we need to do? How can we prepare ourselves to future-proof our careers? If we don't find a way to take control of our careers and to stand out, we risk being left behind. When you take the initiative, when you take your free time, when you are willing to invest in yourself and in your continued learning, you can push your career into places you never would have even thought possible. The number one skill, the foundational skill that we all have today is adaptability. If you have that, you can evolve, you can change, you can move into the new direction and make your transition seamless regardless of what's going on in the outside world. When you rethink what's possible and what's impossible, you can change everything. That's how we make ourselves future-proof.